we're sinking. Can y'all please come?
And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's on board. Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership. Shut the fuck up!
Tonight, that state autopsy report now in the hands of investigators. The results have not been made public. The examination of Nolan Wells' body was conducted on July 7th, one day after he was found dead at the Barrier Island, where he spent the 4th of July holiday with friends. This as new video surfaces appearing to show Nolan at different points during the day. The Officer Tatum podcast posting surveillance video from the boat launch where Nolan and his friends departed on the morning of July 4th. The podcast also airing video and NBC News analysis confirms is from Horn Island on July 4th. You see dozens of boats and people in the water, the show's host claiming Nolan is among them. Another clip aired on the podcast appears to show Nolan's friend's boat being towed. Nolan does not appear to be on it. One of Nolan's friends who traveled home on the boat said they left because the boat malfunctioned and that Nolan decided to stay behind. Meanwhile, Nolan's mother, as administrator of his estate, making several legal moves, this week sending subpoenas to several social media companies for information and content from his accounts. Today, Nolan's mother again asking her community to speak up.
We are begging, if anyone knows anything, his friends, strangers, please call the hotline.
Aaron Gilchrist, NBC News.
And cornered into people suggesting because we stand up for justice, we're something other than a true and full patriot in this country.
Yeah.
That's the way I feel. I said last night, I was born in a segregated hospital, born in a segregated city, watched my parents and their friends fight and litigate and march to open doors of opportunity.
Amen.
The reason why these times are so tough and why they're so difficult is because if we are not careful and if we are not vigilant and diligent, our children and grandchildren will be relitigating the battles of our parents.
Yeah.
This movement in this country to turn back the hands of time is palpable. So when we stand up for these families, and we'll stand up for other families, and we'll stand up for other people, we are doing it because we are true patriots. We're doing it because we believe in justice. We do it because we're going to hold the justice system accountable. This Urban League movement has a mission.
Yes, sir.
And its mission is something we will not surrender.
All right.
Like the Congressional Black Caucus says, we have no permanent friends.
That's right.
We have no permanent enemies. We only have permanent interests.
Amen.
So thank you for your question.
And let me say this before I move on to the final two questions. You know, we as African Americans, as W.B. Du Bois said, we have this duality. I mean, on one hand, we know that when the founders wrote the Constitution, they never expected that the rights would apply to us. But like my personal hero, Thurgood Marshall said, I know they didn't intend it to apply to us, but we're going to make it apply to us anyway because we are American citizens. And if anybody built this country, it was our ancestors with the tolling in the cotton fields. I mean, doing the things that made this very young country become such a prosperous country at such an early age in its infancy. I mean, when you think about what slavery did to elevate America, that were our ancestors. So Yes, I'm going to celebrate the 4th of July essence every year because my ancestors built this joint. And then I'm really going to celebrate on the Juneteenth because I know that is what we do to acknowledge our ancestry. Just like Jewish Americans celebrate the 4th of July in their important dates, just like Italian Americans celebrate the 4th of July and their important dates, just like Spanish Americans celebrate the 4th of July and important dates to them. Black people, we celebrate the 4th of July because we built America.
Before we go any further, if you want to see where this investigation goes next, subscribe now, because what we found after that trailer pulled away changes how you should hear everything you just heard. For weeks, the public story was simple. No signal, no pictures, a group of friends stranded on a barrier island with dead phones and no way to reach anyone. Listen again to the man on that SeaTow call. His voice comes through clean, no static drop, no searching for a bar. He answers the dispatcher's questions in real time, from Horn Island, in the middle of open water. That alone contradicts the story that circulated for weeks. And it isn't the only piece of it. Video from the island that day shows other members of the group holding their phones, using them. In one clip, a friend is heard saying 4 words that undercut the entire narrative. "Give me back my phone." Not "my phone's dead." Not "I can't get service." Give it back. Somebody had it. Somebody was using it. And somewhere in the space between that footage and the public account of the day, the story changed. We don't know who first said there was no reception. We don't know why that version spread. What we do know is what the recordings themselves prove, and they prove the opposite. If the phones worked, if the signal was there the whole time, then every call made that day carries more weight than we first assumed, which means it's time to go back to the one that started it all. You already heard the call. 17 feet, then 31. A young man's voice asking to be towed back. What you haven't heard is the rest of it. The dispatcher's name is Vicki. Her job in that moment is procedure. Depth, location, condition of the vessel. Calm, professional questions into a situation that does not sound calm. When she asks where the tow should go, the answer comes fast. Ocean Springs Harbor, or the Fort Bayou launch. 2 options. A decision already made before help had even arrived. That's a boat owner thinking about where his vessel ends up, not just whether his friends get home safe. Here's where it gets harder to follow. According to sources close to the investigation, and this has not been fully confirmed, a family member, either the boy's father or his grandfather, placed a separate call within minutes of the original one. The message: they no longer needed help. Everything had been resolved. We want to be exact about what we know and don't know here. This claim sits at roughly 90% confirmation, according to sources familiar with the case. Not confirmed, not denied. Sitting in that uncomfortable space between fact and rumor that every real investigation has to sit in honestly. If that call happened, something changed in those 10 minutes. A sinking boat became a resolved situation. Fast enough that the emergency call center barely had time to dispatch anyone. If it didn't happen, if this detail turns out to be wrong, then we're left with an even stranger question. Why would anyone say it did? Either way, someone on that island, or near that phone, was making decisions in real time about what the outside world needed to know, and what it didn't. That's the kind of moment that deserves your attention. And if investigations like this are the kind you want more of, subscribing costs nothing, but it tells us you want the full story, not just the headline. Because right now, we've told you what was said. We haven't told you who was on that call, or who was standing next to him when he made it. His name is Bart Edmiston Jr., 21 years old, from Ocean Springs, a standout kicker and punter in high school, now signed to play football at Southern Miss. That's the voice you've been listening to. The one negotiating tow locations while a boat allegedly took on water. His father is Dr. Bart Edmiston, a pain management physician who once played football himself at the University of Florida. Today, he works within the Memorial Health System, a detail that matters only because of who else shares that same employer. Christine Wells Wansley is a nurse practitioner at that same health system. We want to be precise here because precision is the only thing that protects the integrity of a story like this one. Nothing in the record connects her to Nolan Wells beyond that professional overlap. No family tie has been established. No relationship beyond a shared employer in a small coastal community where those overlaps happen more often than you'd think. We mention her only because the connection exists on paper, and because leaving it out would mean leaving out part of the documented picture. Nothing more should be read into it than what's actually there. What matters now is this. The young man on that recording isn't a stranger's voice anymore. He has a name, a family, a future on a football field 3 hours north of where this happened. And somewhere on that same island, that same afternoon, so did Nolan Wells. 2 young men, 2 families, 1 boat that left without one of them. Now that you know who was speaking into that phone, listen again to what his friends say happened in the minutes before it left. A friend named Warren has a version of that afternoon. In it, the group is scrambling to leave. Voices are raised. People are yelling at Nolan to hurry, to get on the boat before it pulls away. It's the kind of chaotic, ordinary urgency you'd expect from 7 friends trying to beat the tide, the sunset, or each other back to the dock. But there's another account. A young woman named Katie later told Nolan's mother that she saw him that day too. Not urgent, not rushed, just a passing moment. Brief, unremarkable, the kind of interaction you forget by dinner. 2 witnesses, 2 different afternoons, somehow occupying the same hour on the same small island. Warren's account suggests a group actively trying to bring Nolan with them. Katie's suggests someone who wasn't part of that scramble at all, someone she crossed paths with in an entirely different moment. Both cannot be the complete picture. Maybe neither is. Memory bends under stress, under alcohol, under the particular chaos of a holiday crowd scattering off an island as weather or urgency pushes them toward their boats. What we're left with is this. The last confirmed sighting of Nolan Wells doesn't exist as one clean fact. It exists as 2 accounts that don't agree with each other, told by 2 people who were both, by their own words, right there. Somewhere between Warren's shouting and Katie's quiet hallway of a memory, Nolan Wells stopped being visible to anyone who has spoken publicly about that day. And the paper trail investigators have gathered since then only complicates that picture further. ABC News obtained a document from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, the record used to brief search teams once Nolan was reported missing. Buried in it, witness descriptions noting that he'd been drinking heavily that day. We're stating that fact exactly as it appears, and we're stating its limits just as clearly. Whether it matters, whether it has any bearing on what happened next, depends entirely on findings from the coroner that, as of this recording, have not been made public. Alcohol consumption on a boat during a 4th of July gathering is, on its own, neither evidence of wrongdoing nor an explanation of anything. It's one data point in an incomplete file. The same document search revealed something else, relayed by sources described only as having direct knowledge of the investigation. Photo or video evidence, reportedly reviewed by police, allegedly placing Nolan Wells on Horn Island after that 4:30 p.m. departure you saw in the opening minutes of this documentary. If accurate, that timestamp reopens everything. It means the boat you watched leave without him wasn't necessarily the last time anyone had eyes on that island. It means someone, somewhere, has a photo or a frame of video that the public has never seen. One unconfirmed report goes further still, placing Nolan on the island as late as 6 o'clock that evening, 90 minutes after his friends were already back on open water. We are not going to tell you that report is true. We're not going to tell you it's false. We're telling you it exists, attached to sources who have not been publicly named, and that it has not been independently verified by this production. What we can verify is the gap. That same hour and 13 minutes between dock arrivals that you heard about in the opening minutes, the stretch where the boat sat, seemingly going nowhere, after supposedly sinking hours earlier. It sits inside this same unexplained window. 2 mysteries, occupying the same stretch of missing time, and nobody with public authority has yet connected them. If you've made it this far, you already understand why this case refuses to close. And if you want to see how far the record actually goes before it runs out, stay with us, because we're about to show you exactly where that line is. Here is everything this investigation can state with confidence, and everything it cannot. Nolan Wells is dead. The cause and manner of his death have not been made public. Even the year of the incident isn't specified in the reporting available to us. A small detail, but a telling one, in a case where so much remains undisclosed. The call to cancel emergency assistance, the one that may have come from a father or a grandfather within minutes of the original distress call, remains unconfirmed at roughly 90% certainty. Not proven, not disproven. The sighting placing Nolan on the island as late as 6 o'clock remains just as unresolved. So does the photo or video evidence police are reported to hold, from sources whose names we don't have and whose claims we cannot independently verify. There is a second version of that SeaTow recording circulating publicly, one with additional, disputed audio that some believe contains far darker language buried in the background noise. We want to be direct with you. That clip has never been authenticated. Digital forensics expert Todd Shipley reviewed it and said plainly that it doesn't sound complete, that critical context is missing from it. We have not used a single word of that unverified recording in this documentary, and we won't, until, if ever, it's confirmed. What remains, when you strip away every rumor, is the one piece of evidence nobody disputes. Video, time-stamped at 4:30 in the afternoon, showing 7 friends fighting to get a boat started and pulling away from Horn Island. Nolan Wells is not in that footage. Everyone on that recorded call said they were squared away. Every one of them, accounted for, safe, headed home. The video says something different. And until someone explains that gap between what was said on the phone and what the camera actually shows, this case remains exactly what it's been since the beginning. Unfinished, unresolved, and owed an answer that hasn't come yet. If this investigation mattered to you, subscribe and stay with us. Because when the next piece of verified evidence surfaces, we'll be the ones bringing it to you first. Fact by fact, exactly as it happened, and not one word more than the record can support.